Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. For meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I offer one-on-one angel sessions, soul mentoring, and a variety of classes designed to inspire your spirit. And you can learn more at my website, illuminatingsouls.com, where you can also sign up for my mailing list. I always have a new class of some sort that I offer about every 6 weeks or so. And so if you sign up for my mailing list, you will receive lovely, sweet emails from me where I share with you what I have going on. You can also follow me at my Facebook page of the same name, Illuminating Souls. And I post there daily, including the Peace Angels images that I'm creating in mid-journey and other inspiring messages. So lots of ways we can connect. But for now, the angels and I are here to help co-create this loving, sweet, comforting sanctuary, an oasis of sorts, where you can replenish. And this podcast is born of two of my favorite forms of self-care, connecting with the angels and also listening to a sleep podcast each night as I fall asleep. Listening to a sweet, soothing story has become part of my bedtime ritual since 2015. And this podcast is just about 2 years old. So there are over 200 episodes you can tune into. They're all free of charge, so I don't hide anything behind a paywall. And however you choose to use this podcast, whether you use it as a sleep tool or you listen during your waking hours, it is my absolute blessing to keep you company. I have such warm memories of bedtime as a kid. I know not everybody does, but mine were very sweet. My sister and I, we shared a bedroom on the second floor of our home. And more often than not, I would hear my parents downstairs in the living room and the TV would be playing in the background as I was drifting off to sleep. There were many, many nights where our father would lay down on our bedroom floor between my bed and my sister's bed, which I really think is such an act of love, especially because it was a hardwood floor with a very thin pink carpeting on it. And when people would say to him, "Jack, how do you lay down on the floor? How do you sleep on the floor?" He would always say, "Oh, it's good for my back." It was a typical Jack Bleadon response. And we would tell stories, and I felt so safe drifting off to sleep with my dad on the floor beside me. And at some point he would get up and go to bed, but I was always asleep at that point. So this concept of a soft, soothing voice, sort of out in the ether somewhere as I'm drifting off to sleep, is definitely a comfort for me. And so it is my honor and blessing to bring this comfort to you too, however it shows up for you. So my bedtime ritual usually starts early in the evening because I love bedtime. By the time the sun sets, I'm ready for bed. I have a really odd circadian rhythm these days. And around 6 or 6:30, I prepare the bed, which isn't a big deal. I just pull the covers back and rearrange the pillows into their sleeping position, including my giant body pillow, courtesy of the company store. Company store has the best body pillows. And I also sleep with a CPAP machine, so I get my CPAP ready for me. And at some point in the early evening, I also brush my teeth, so that when that moment hits, when my body says it is time, I can just zoom. Not that I have to zoom very far. Our house is very small, but I can just make a beeline for bed without having to do any prep work. Again, not that the prep work is hard to do. I just mean it's like waiting for me. It says, Laurel, when you're ready, we're ready. And it's cooler right now as I record this, so I've got a beautiful, because I share a bed with my husband, we have a beautiful comforter on the bed that is thick and heavy. And then I also have 2 extra blankets on the bed. And we have flannel sheets, so it's cozy and weighty and warm. And let me tell you, as soon as I crawl under those covers, I'm out now. In the summer, it's harder for me to go to sleep because the house isn't as cool. But winter is my prime sleeping time. And I love bedtime. So I love sharing my love of bedtime with you too. I also love early morning. So as I record this, it is early morning. The sun isn't yet up. The world is quiet, and it's a Sunday morning, which means it's extra quiet. I love early Sunday mornings. So here we are. We're here in this beautiful oasis filled with quiet, beautiful love, and the angels are here. And so I'm going to call the angels in to join us, even though they are already here. I love sharing the ritual with you. So I invite you to take a nice deep breath in as we call ourselves forward into the heart of God. And beautiful angels on high, I invite you to join us here. And I ask that you infuse this broadcast with waves of love, waves of beauty, waves of goodness and light, and healing and service to each of our beloveds hearing this message. Angels, I am so grateful for this opportunity to come together in the light, where divine love is amplified. And I ask that you assist each one of us in remembering who we are as divine beings in human form. And dear ones, just take a nice deep breath in. And just release whatever it is, whatever your it is. Just release it. Your many its, if it's multitudes of things that are up for releasing for you. And the angels will take care of it all for you. When I used to do in-person angel circles at a metaphysical store not far from our house, Josephus and the angels, when we would get into circle, they would say to the participants, leave your burdens and worries at the door. If you want to pick them up on your way out, you're more than welcome, or else we will clear them for you. And I just thought, that is the sweetest invitation. Because I don't know about you, but I am all too happy to ask the angels to lift that which feels heavy to me. Because that which feels heavy to us is light as a feather to them. So just take another nice deep breath in and imagine, if you will, that the angels are filling the space you are in with a beautiful, soft, pink light that is filled with love that has been calibrated just for you. The angels know what is in your heart. They know your prayers. They know the intimacy of your consciousness and your life. And they are bringing you blessings of light that have been calibrated just for you. Even if you're not sure if this is true, just imagine that it is. Our imagination is a wonderful gateway to connect with the angels. Listen, I know we all want proof of these things, and love is not something that any test at MIT can scientifically quantify. But just take a breath and allow your imagination to take you into an experience where this divine love exists. And just breathe in the expansiveness of this invitation. It might sound so strange to invite you to use your imagination as a gateway, but we use our imaginations all the time. You know what worry is? Worry is the imagination. We worry about things we don't know about yet, about what might happen, about outcomes. That's all in the imagination. So it's not so strange to use our imaginations for good, for love, for comfort. So just imagine, if you will, that your angels who have loved you since before you were born, they are here with you, loving you, supporting you, helping you to remember who you are as a divine being in human form. You are so very precious in this world, and your life is a blessing to those of us who know and love you. You are a gift in this world, and I am so profoundly grateful for the gift of you and our time together. It might sound odd, but it gives me comfort to imagine, back to the imagination, to imagine that there will be a moment in time when you will be listening to this message. I feel this love that is transmitting to you. And this transmission is not bound by time nor space. So it exists. And whenever you hear this message, this love is transmitting to you. And if you listen to this message multiple times across different timelines, this energy will be recalibrated to find you whenever and wherever you are. How cool is that? It works that way for me too. So if I'm listening to this message months from now, whatever is in my heart and whatever I am going through, this transmission of love will meet me where I am, just like it's meeting you where you are. So take a deep breath in, and again, just release whatever your it is. And if you have prayers and intentions, you wish to share with God and the angels, just bring it into your heart. And your prayers and intentions will be amplified. And right now the angels are sending a ripple of love across the timeline of your life to those you love and to those who love you across time and space. So you, dear one, if you are preparing for bed, I invite you to cozy on up and snuggle on in and get comfortable in whatever way works best for you. And while you rest, your angels will be with you. And while you rest, I'm going to tell you some stories. So for our story time, I thought we could go in the Wayback Machine to 1968. I would be 6 years old. And the form of our story time is going to be flipping through the pages of an old community cookbook. We haven't done one of these in a long time. So what a community cookbook is and was, is you would have a community of women. This one happens to be a very special one, which I'll get to in a moment. So they might be the sisterhood of a temple or a church. It might be a PTA. So some sort of community of women would get together and they would bring their favorite recipes. And some woman, lovely woman, who likely overcommitted herself in every way in her life, would arrange these into a community cookbook. More often than not, they were spiral bound, and then the cookbooks would be sold to raise funds. Now, back in the day, we didn't have the internet. You couldn't just go onto your phone and pull up a recipe for sour cream cake or something. Recipes were in cookbooks, and you exchanged recipes with other women. And I'm not saying men didn't get involved in this, but it was 1968, and it was mostly women in the kitchen back then. So for those of you who perhaps are too young to remember the 60s, it was a time when it was mostly women doing all the cooking. Microwaves weren't a thing yet. They existed, but they were not mainstreamed into our homes. And fast food existed, but it was a once in a while thing, not every day. So the women were responsible for making 3 meals a day for the most part. This idea that you could open a can of beans or have some shortcuts, a can of this, a jar of that, some paprika, and it's a recipe. And it's one of the things I love so much about these community cookbooks, is it really speaks to what running a household could be like back then. There's also an assumption, and especially in a lot of the earlier cookbooks from the 50s and 60s, that the women who would be using this cookbook would already know how to cook. So a recipe might say, make a pie crust. As if you would already know how to make your pie crust. Of course you would know, because you were a housewife in the 60s. And everyone knew how to make a pie crust. And this specific cookbook is very special to me because it comes from the sisterhood of Temple Beth Israel, which is the temple that my family belonged to. And I also have to tell you the sweet story of how I got this cookbook. You might just assume I got it from my mom, but I didn't. I don't even know if my mom had this cookbook. I don't know if you've ever gone through the very tender experience of cleaning out a family home. But when we had to clean out my parents' home in 2019, this had been our family home for 60 years. There was a lot of stuff in it. And so I live in California and the house was in Skokie. And so in that time of grief, I just had to pick the things that were important to me at that time. It's a weird experience. And so I do have some of my mother's cookbooks, but if there had been one of these cookbooks, I wouldn't have cared back then. I didn't know about community cookbooks. I didn't care about them. I would have put it in the Goodwill bag if it existed even. So I don't even know if my mom had these. But in 2021 and 2022, when I was starting this podcast, I fell in love with community cookbooks and sharing them here with you. So I started building my collection so I would have material we could use together. And then I thought I would love them from Temple Beth Israel because that was my temple growing up. And I searched on eBay and I think I found one at some point. And then at some point in 2022, someone on eBay had a whole set of Temple Beth Israel community cookbooks from across the decades, as well as some other Jewish community cookbooks. It was a rather expensive listing, and my husband, who's always right about everything, said, just get it. Just get it. And so I did. And the story gets even sweeter. On the inside cover of one of the cookbooks was the name and address of the woman it belonged to. And she lived 2 blocks away from our family home. And the name was familiar to me. So that someone we would sort of know in community, that they would have these cookbooks wouldn't be surprising because we grew up and were very active in the Temple Beth Israel community. And so that part wasn't so surprising, but I don't know, it just made this even more special. So I didn't know the family, but I thought someone must. And so I posted to Facebook because I have a lot of friends from my childhood there. And I said, does anybody know this family? Because I wanted to make sure that however these had shown up on eBay, that someone in the family didn't want them. Because that's the other thing that happens, right? We give stuff away when we're clearing out a house and maybe it's something we might want later on, or maybe a niece or nephew who didn't know it existed might be interested. And so I felt as the steward of these cookbooks now, I wanted to reach out to the family and make sure they didn't want them. So I found someone who knew the daughter, and I emailed with the daughter, and she said, oh, thank you so much. Actually, I have my own copy of all of these, so you enjoy them. And I don't know, that just touched my heart so much, so that these books had lived just a few blocks away from my family home and were in our community and well loved, just makes them all the sweeter to me. So a little bit about Temple Beth Israel. We were a Reformed congregation. Our rabbi was Rabbi Lords. And so we were Reformed but traditional. And in 1968, we were still in our synagogue in Albany Park, which is on the north side of Chicago, and it was an exquisite building. The sanctuary was definitely, 3 or 4 stories high, and there were stained glass windows and a choir loft, and there was a majesty to it that certainly as a kid, learning these lofty ideals of God and religion being in a sanctuary like this made it seem all the more real, right? A beautiful synagogue. And it really was a second home. I sang in the junior choir. I had my bat mitzvah there. I went to Sabbath school. My father was involved in the brotherhood and my mother was involved in the sisterhood. So it really was an extension of our family. And so there are a lot of warm memories for me that come up in association with Temple Beth Israel. There's a beautiful, I'm not going to read the quote, but I've been enjoying the book by John O'Donohue, Walking in Wonder. It's a beautiful book. If you are looking for an audiobook to keep you company while you go on your walks, I highly recommend it. And he talks about the marvel of our memories, and that often in the modern age, we access memories to clear trauma and wounds and things like that. And he says, but we must remember that our memories are like a treasure trove. That's my word, not his. Can be a treasure trove of warmth, of comfort, of love. And I know that's not true for everyone, but it's true for me. And so I love these episodes where I get to share my warm, loving, comforting memories with you in hopes that the vibration of these memories can be transmitted to you, and I gladly share it with you. So the sisterhood at whether it was a temple or a church, these are the women who are responsible for often putting out the food, right? Because, everything involves food, for me anyways. And they would do the carpooling right to and from Sabbath school and choir rehearsal, and they just were very active in our lives. So I thought we could flip through. This one is called Kitchen Magic from Sisterhood of Temple Beth Israel. And I really want to honor these women. These women who perhaps I knew or didn't know. Maybe there's women here who knew me as a little girl and I don't remember them. But as a collective, these women were responsible for cultivating a profound sense of warmth that is with me today. After a service, a Shabbat service, there is an Oneg Shabbat, which is the gathering after a service, and there's always cake, a little challah, a little wine. So, food, right? You know me, I'm a foodie. And like the Oneg Shabbat was the reward for going to services. You got to have a little cake, a little cookie, a little kichel, a little something, some grape juice because I was a kid. And it would be the sisterhood that would put this together. So I honor these women, whether I remember them or not, because the tapestry of love and warmth that they infused into my childhood is still with me today. Isn't that remarkable? I'm 61 years old, and I still can access the warmth and the love and heart of these women all these years later. So on one of the inner pages, it says, commemorating 50 years of service to our temple. So this was published in 1968, so they must be doing 50 years back to 1938. And Mrs. Russell Baruch and Mrs. Eli Rashkin are co-chairmen, and Mrs. Milton Sherman is president. So again, back in this time, women were listed as their husbands' names. So I would be Mrs. Wesley Maffei. We start off with some generic information that must have been published in all of these community cookbooks that were published by the same the same publisher, where they give you equivalents. For instance, I remember this from home ec class. I don't know what young women do now who don't have home ec, but that there are 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon and 8 tablespoons in a half a cup. So they give you all the measurements. They also give you some weights and measures. So a lemon rind of 1 lemon equals 1 tablespoon of grated. I don't know. So they give you all this helpful information, how to carve and present food. It gives you the yield if you're doing canned food. If you're doing so, for instance, 1 bushel of apples, which would be 48 pounds, will give you 16 to 20 quarts canned. I don't know that, so that would be helpful information, because remember, this is pre-Google. I mean, you needed printed material to learn these things. Okay, this one is really painful. The ideal weights for adults. And you wonder why I had body issues. So I am 5'6" on a tall day, maybe 5'5" on a short day. And it is saying if I am in a large frame, which I always hoped I would, because it would mean that I would be less overweight than I always was. But I don't have a large frame. I have a medium frame. But that in a large frame I should weigh between 145 and 157, which I don't think I have weighed since 7th grade. In a medium frame I should be 137 to 147 pounds. Oh, that's for men. Oh my God, I should even weigh less than that. I always wanted to be a man in a big frame. Okay, let's go back. Okay, even worse. It's even worse than that. Oh my God, in a large frame, I should weigh between 133 and 145 pounds. Okay, that's never going to happen. In a medium frame, I should be 130 to 140 pounds. Hello, body issues, for sure. I don't even know what that's supposed to be today, but I don't care. It also gives us protein content and calorie value of foods for your diet, because you're going to need that after you see the weight and height chart from 1968. So how do we recover from this kind of sad news about the weight and height chart? We're going to talk about food, and really delicious food that involves butter and sugar and yummy stuff, because yeah, that's why we're here, for sure. So we're starting off in the appetizers, which I'm going to skip over, but I just have to say, because it is a Jewish community cookbook, it does involve things like chopped liver, chopped herring, pickled herring, all of those great Jewish dishes. This one, I have a special place in my heart for the really awful dietetic recipes of the 1970s, so I have to share this one with you. This is Diet Cranberry Relish by Lena Boffman. I don't know her. 2 envelopes of Deserta orange jello, so I'm sure just the sugar-free orange jello will do from Walmart or your favorite grocery store. 1 pint bottle of low-calorie cranberry juice. So again, there are the sugar-free or no sugar added cranberry juices. 1 jar of low-calorie cranberry sauce. Now, I don't know that still exists. 1 stalk of celery and 2 of your favorite eating apples. Add boiling cranberry juice to jello. Stir to dissolve completely. Chill until slightly thickened. Add celery, apples, and cranberries and cut in big crunchy pieces. Mix thoroughly and refrigerate. God bless the woman who figured that out. And that must have been very sad to not be able to eat regular cranberry sauce. Okay, and we're heading over to the salad portion. Now, 1968, I'm very confused about food and weight, because by 5 years old, I knew that I was a bigger girl. And my mom was on a perpetual diet. So I thought that anything called salad was good for me because I'm a kid. So in the spirit of this, I must share with you a salad I would have loved as a child. Carrot raisin salad. On the surface, what could be bad about that? It's carrots and raisins. But wait, a quarter cup of darker light raisins. That's not a lot of raisins. Here we go. A half a cup of miniature marshmallows. Now we're getting to the good stuff. A half a cup of grated pineapple drained. 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise thinned with 1 tablespoon of pineapple juice and 1 tablespoon of cream. Mix all together and chill for several hours before serving. Oh, and shred the 8 carrots. I forgot completely about the carrots because it's in a different part of the page. What's bad about that? It's a carrot salad. I'd be like, I am so good with my food. And well, I don't know that at 6 I would have had that awareness, but certainly 8-year-old me would have been like, look how good I am, Mom. I'm having carrot salad. And knowing me, I would have picked out all the mini marshmallows. Like if there was a big bowl of that, I would have been very strategic in pulling my spoonful from the place with the most mini marshmallows. Like that's the best part, right? The carrots were just a carrier for the marshmallows as a kid. And then there are many forms of Jell-O molds, and this one feels very 1960s. Orange Crunch mold. 2 packages of orange Jell-O. I'm assuming we're going full sugar here. 1 large cream cheese, soft. And back then, the cream cheese came in the blocks wrapped in that foil material. 1 cup of chopped celery. 1 cup of chopped walnuts. A half a cup of maraschino cherries chopped. So I'm all in. Again, marshmallows or maraschino cherries to me as a kid signaled deliciousness was about to ensue. And half a pint of whipping cream whipped. So you make the Jell-O, you whip the cream cheese, you mix it all together, you fold in the whipping cream, and you pour it into a mold. Would have loved that. How about, I don't know, I'll skip to other things because I don't know how much Jell-O you want to know about, but there is a Jell-O recipe that includes orange juice and ginger ale and sherbet. Again, sherbet, I'm in. Now, not that I would pick sherbet at Baskin Robbins. I just mean if there's one of those floating punch things that involves sherbet, I'm there. So again, you're a kid, there's a party table. There are dishes that include maraschino cherries or marshmallows or sherbet. It's a no-brainer. For sure, we're going for those. Okay, here's another one. This is apple surprise salad mold. I like anything with the word surprise. It's like, surprise. Okay, and this one is from Eleanor Schwartz. So it's plain gelatin. I'm not going to give you all the measurements because we're not really going to make this. Cold water, unsweetened applesauce, sugar. This is what I liked. A quarter cup of red cinnamon candies. Remember those? The little red hots? Nutmeg and lemon juice. And you have an apple surprise salad mold. Okay, this one sounds awful. Beet borscht mold. As a kid, I would run in the other direction. But I would imagine something like this was probably served with chopped herring. Like this would be a very, like an old people dish. And now that I'm old people, I can say I wouldn't eat it. But probably this was, the kind of food that perhaps had memories for them. Wow, I'm just not being nice about this beet borscht mold that involves unflavored gelatin, shoestring beets, because back in the day, I don't even remember a real beet existing outside of a jar or a can. Sugar, red wine vinegar, and minced onion. And I went on over to the vegetable part of things. And here's the interesting thing again about the 60s. So produce had to be seasonal because we didn't have the kind of international shipping and growing seasons that we have now. And so all of these recipes for broccoli or spinach involve frozen broccoli and spinach because you just wouldn't run to the supermarket and buy fresh broccoli back then. So a cheese broccoli casserole. This is so 1960s. 4 packages of chopped frozen broccoli. If you can imagine it in those little frozen blocks. They didn't even come in a bag then. It was a block. A half a pound of Velveeta cheese, because that was cheese. A 1/4 pound of butter. And 1 can of mushrooms. We typically didn't have fresh mushrooms either. Mushrooms came in a can or a jar. And paprika. So you cook the broccoli and drain. You had to cook it. You didn't have a microwave. Mix butter, paprika, and cheese into broccoli. And put it in a casserole and put the mushrooms over it. And then bake it at 350 degrees for 30 minutes. My mom didn't make anything like this. Oh, Barbara Knightids. I knew her daughter, Sandy. I knew her. Lovely woman. Well, I don't remember her that well, but I just remember the Knightidses were a lovely family. So, I would have thought I'm eating vegetables. This is a good dish. I would have eaten that for sure. This is another this is from the rabbi's wife, Eudice Large, Mrs. Large. This is another very 1960s recipe, broccoli au gratin. 4 packages of frozen broccoli. 1 jar of sliced mushrooms. 8 to 10 ounces of grated cheddar cheese, breadcrumbs, and 1 can of mushroom soup. This is such a 1960s recipe. I bet that would be delicious. Okay, this one actually sounds really good. And I would think I'm being healthy because I'm eating carrots. So again, carrots as the carrier for sugar and other good stuff. A hot carrot mold, and this is from Esther Barron. 1 1/4 cups of grated carrots. So there's the veg. A half a cup of spry, which I think is probably shortening. Here we go. Half a cup of brown sugar. Now you've got my attention. 1 egg. 1 1/4 cups of sifted flour. 1 teaspoon baking powder. 1 teaspoon baking soda. Half a teaspoon of salt. 1 tablespoon lemon juice. And 1 tablespoon of water. You mix that all together, and you probably have something that tastes like carrot cake deliciousness, and I would think I'm having carrots. Carrot cake, healthy, involves carrots. Oh, little Laurel was so confused. Again, at 6 years old, I didn't have that kind of awareness. I'm just thinking of me at 8 and 10. Okay, here's one that sounds good. Raspberry cheese pie. So for the crust, we're going to do a graham cracker crust, which you would not buy in the store. You would make yourself. So you melt 3/4 of a stick of butter or margarine. Put graham cracker crumbs into melted butter and mix well. So, you have to roll out the 20 single graham crackers. So we make our own crumbs. So it's the graham crackers and the butter, and you make your own pie crust. For the filling, delicious already, I can tell. 3/4 of a pound of cream cheese. Again, it would be in the block with the silver wrapper. Philadelphia, of course. Half a cup of sugar, 2 eggs, 1 tablespoon of flour, and 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So you mix that all together and beat until smooth. And pour the mixture into a pie shell and bake for 12 minutes in a 350 degree oven. And then for the topping, bring to a boil over low flame 2 boxes of frozen raspberries. Again, fresh raspberries were not available except for a few weeks in the summer, so you would buy the boxed ones in the freezer section. So you're going to mix 3 tablespoons of cornstarch and water to form a paste. Add the raspberries while stirring. Cool. Stir while cooling, and when cool, add the pie crust and refrigerate. I'm surprised you're not putting sugar into the frozen raspberries. Maybe frozen raspberries then came with sugar. And that recipe was from Fay Rice. Here's one called cheese tarts. Who doesn't love a good cheese tart? From Blanche Foreman. 1/2 pound of cream cheese. I love these cream cheese recipes. Like, give me something with cream cheese and sugar, and I am a happy girl. So 1/2 pound, but I don't eat sugar anymore. I just had to say that out loud. Okay. 1/2 pound of cream cheese, 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 7 tablespoons of sugar, 2/3 of a stick of butter softened, 1 cup graham cracker crumbs, and 1 can of cherry pie filling. Anything involving cherry pie filling, sign me up. So mix cream cheese, egg, vanilla, and 4 tablespoons of sugar and set that aside. Then mix 3 tablespoons of sugar, crumbs, and butter. Spread 1 tablespoon of crumb mixture in a small liner cup inserted in small size muffin tins. See you with me so far? The little paper cupcake liner in the little cupcake tin. So you're going to put some of the crumb mixture. So it's like the bottom of a cheesecake, a graham cracker crumb cheesecake crust. And then you're going to fill it with 1 teaspoon of cheese filling. Bake for 10 minutes in a 325-degree oven and top with cherries when cool. Yields 16 small-sized tarts. Those are like little cherry cheesecakes. Okay, if that had been on the Oneg Shabbat table, I would have taken 2. That would have been totally my speed when I was a kid. And you know what's weird? I can taste it. Like, my memories are coming back. I can taste it. I can taste like the sugary, syrupy cherry pie filling. I can taste chomping into the cheesecake with the graham cracker crust. It's so funny. I'm having this very delicious memory come back to me. I must have had something like that. My mom did make a cheesecake with the cherry topping on it, so it may be that I'm remembering my mom's cheesecake too. She had a really good cheesecake recipe. Okay, we're in the dessert section, clearly. I should have said that earlier, but you know that we're not in the vegetable section anymore, right? I love this one. Lee's Quick Working Girls Cobbler. Just the title tells you what was going on in society back then, right? And this is from Lee Shore. So a pie filling mix, blueberry or any flavor. Pie Oh My small cake mix, which probably is equivalent to Dunkin's these days. A 1/4 pound of melted butter or margarine in just an 8x8 inch pan. So layer 1 is your blueberry pie filling mix. Layer 2 is the yellow cake mix. So this is one of those dump and go cakes that are so much the rage on TikTok. Layer 3, the melted butter or margarine. And you're going to bake for 1 hour in a 350-degree oven. And, oh, well, here's the good part. Serve hot with ice cream or whipped cream. Well, yes. So you've got pie filling, cake mix, butter, and ice cream. That is going to be a bowl of deliciousness right there. And I don't know, those kinds of cakes are very popular right now on social media. I, of course, have never made one or had one because I don't eat sugar anymore. Oh, I love the title of this one. Betty's Banana Bonanza Cake. Yes, Bonanza, for sure. Let's show up for that from Betty Weissman. We're going to use 3/8 of a cup of shortening. I would probably use butter. But I'm not going to make this because of sugar. 1 cup of sugar, 2 eggs, 1 3/4 cup of flour, a 1/4 teaspoon of soda, 3 tablespoons of milk, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 2 overripe bananas, and 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. So, kind of banana bread. with chocolate chips. Healthy banana bread. It has bananas. I love a good banana bread. I'm just going to take a deep sigh on that. I love a good banana bread. So, an ode to banana bread right there. And we couldn't go through a cookbook like this without giving you at least one kugel recipe. Maybe this is your first time listening to this podcast. Maybe you have never heard of kugel before. But kugel is a food of love in Jewish households. It can be sweet or savory. I, of course, love the sweet kind. It's a noodle kugel, and the noodles are typically the egg noodles. And there's many variations of it. My preferred one involves cottage cheese, sour cream, sugar, and lots of raisins. This one is from Dina Mae Cohen. I don't remember her specifically, but I remember her name. She was very active in the sisterhood, so I thought I would read to you Dina Mae Cohen's noodle pudding or kugel recipe. So we've got 8 ounces of packaged medium noodles, and if you were a Jewish housewife, you knew she meant the egg noodles. 1 teaspoon of salt, 4 eggs beaten, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1 stick of butter, 2 cups of milk, 1 large package of cream cheese. So some women would use cream cheese instead of the sour cream and cottage cheese, and 1/4 cup of white raisins, which isn't a lot of raisins for a kugel. I put in a cup because they're awesome. And she's also going for the 2 cups crushed corn flakes mixture of cinnamon and sugar topping, which brings an extra layer of deliciousness to your kugel, which I do not use, but it sounds delicious. So we're going to cook the noodles in salt water, drain, and then in an 8 by 12 inch loaf pan, melt the butter and cheese in the oven. Combine the rest of the ingredients and mix with butter and cheese. Combine with noodles. Let stand several hours until the milk is absorbed. It's best to mix the ingredients the night before it is baked. I didn't know that. If mixed just before baking, decrease milk to 1 3/4 cup. Sprinkle top with crushed cornflakes and cinnamon sugar mixture, and then bake at 350 degrees for 1 hour. It sounds delicious. And then to close us out, I'm going to share with you Mom's honey cake from Mrs. Lorge. She was Rabbi Lorge's wife. And so it's 1/2 cup of Crisco, 1 cup of sugar, 2/3 of a cup of honey, 2/3 of a cup of strong coffee, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup raisins, or 1/2 cup nuts. I would say split the difference and have both. 3 eggs, 2 1/2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of allspice. So we're going to cream shortening and sugar, add honey, and the eggs one at a time on high speed. Again, most households had a standing KitchenAid Mixmaster. Add flour and dry ingredients on low speed, spices included, alternating with coffee. Add raisins or nuts, or both if desired. Yes, please, and thank you. Bake at 350 degrees, 45 minutes, in a 9 by 12 inch pan lined with wax paper or foil. And for those of you who don't know, honey cake is typically something that we eat on Rosh Hashanah, which is our new year. And there are many more wonderful recipes in this cookbook. And so I just really want to pay tribute to the women of Temple Beth Israel throughout the years who really made a big difference in my life as a child. I was really blessed. Temple was one of those places where I felt safe, where I felt included, that I was part of the family, that I was special. It's so interesting. I almost wasn't going to say that part, but I think as young children, we want places where we feel special. Not more special than someone else. It's not this bell curve of I'm more special than you. But we want places where we're recognized, where someone knows us, where we belong. And I definitely had that feeling at Temple Beth Israel. And the women of the sisterhood played a big part of that, as did the men. So, certainly the brotherhood and just the whole community. I feel so fortunate that I grew up with parents that were very active in our synagogue. So it felt like I belonged there. And I feel very blessed to have had a place in my childhood where I felt like I belonged. So I want to honor the women of the Sisterhood of Temple Beth Israel. I want to pay tribute to you and honor you and thank you for leaving this treasure for me to find all of these years later. I'm so deeply grateful, and I'm grateful to be able to share these warm, sweet memories with you, and hope that you receive an infusion of goodness and light from our time together. So thank you, beautiful friend, for keeping me company on this walk down memory lane. I wish you the sweetest of dreams. I wish you love. I wish you goodness. And I wish you grace. I look forward to connecting again soon. Thank you.